friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here for another Monday This and That. And I call it that because on Mondays, I'm typically talking about several different topics, hitting a few key points, answering questions, leading you back to some videos I may already have out, and just giving you general updates of what's going on around here. So let's get to the topics of today. So because I've been getting a lot of questions on this, even though I've made a couple of posts, one on my second channel, one on this main channel, about how we're faring here and all this weather. And I do want to say I appreciate all the people who've been concerned and asking about us because they know we live in Washington State. But one thing you got to understand is the part of Washington State we live in is already the rainiest, wettest part of even the west side of Washington State. So all of the flooding and all that horrible stuff you've seen going on is in the areas that do not get the kind of rainfall we get. They, yes, got a lot of rainfall, but when I did some double checking, I started thinking, well, maybe they are getting more rain than we are. What we're getting is actually normal for our time of the year. It's a lot of rain and it's a lot of wind, but it's very normal for us. Yes, it's kind of extreme at moments, but again, it happens every year. But the difference is these other places are getting similar types of rainfall as we are getting, but their soils, the way their towns are laid out, all these various different things are not set up to handle the great amount of rainfall they're getting. And so that's what the major differences are. So a lot of places from Snoqualmie, Duval, those are all about a 4-hour drive away from us. But where we are at, yes, our ditches have kind of gotten pretty full around here. Here's a clip of our ditch from yesterday, and we had really high rainfall last night after I took that clip, and the ditch doesn't look near as full as it did when I took that little video clip. So we are set up to handle that. Part of it is just natural. It's just the natural way our area is because of the rainfall that is common for here. But when I did some looking this morning to compare rainfalls, I couldn't compare day by day. I could see for the past 24 hours that we have had at least twice as much rainfall, 5 times as much rainfall as the areas that are flooding out right now. And for the whole month of December, up to the date that I'm shooting this, which is I think the 17th, we still have had at least twice as much rainfall as the locations that are flooding out. With that said, we've had a lot of wind, we've had a lot of rain, we've had 2 power outages, and that's just what we deal with here. So I do appreciate everyone asking about us and asking about our welfare, but just know we're doing fine. Actual real flooding here, where like whole yards and streets and parking lots where the whole things are getting flooded, are pretty rare here. We had one incident like that, I think it's been almost 3 years now that happened. And it had been maybe a good 20, 30 years since we've seen something similar to that. So it's those kind of conditions are pretty rare. But having parking lots that get a little bit of lakes in them and the ditches kind of overflowing into the yards and out into the streets a little bit are fairly normal this time of year, but nothing that's an issue. But you do please keep the other areas, the people, in prayers because it is bad. People are losing their homes and all kinds of things. Recently, I did hear of a young man who lost his life because he ignored the road signs. The road was closed and he decided to go ahead and make that trek anyway, ended up in a ditch of under 6 feet of water, and he didn't survive. And so it's very sad. Where my sister lives, part of her town did get flooded out, and some areas are still flooded, but thankfully her part of town where she lives is the older part, was built a little better. They're not having any issues directly where she's at. She even has a basement and no flooding for her, so that's good. But with that said, on the power outage, so yes, we'd had 2 back-to-back power outages, and both of them were, I would say each one was about 12 hours apiece, and so a full day power outage. But as you guys know who've been following us for any length of time, we're set up for such things. Now, midwinter like this, where it's very dark and we're having all these storms, solar power is way down here at the bottom. So we don't use much of that. We did have to use a little bit during that time, but we also have other types of generators and other things that we can do. Fuel lanterns, many things that we can fall back on. We're covered. So, and of course we have our wood stove, which I always cook on this time of the year anyway, so dinner isn't an issue. Making coffee and tea is not an issue. Even heating water to wash the dishes in is not an issue. So we're taken care of. That's just part of living here. Now, I will admit there are quite a number of people that have lived here for years that still haven't figured out the importance of having backups. Unfortunately, you would think they'd figure that out by now with all the many power outages we have, and there'll still be several more yet to come before the winter is over and the spring. We get them all year round, but they typically happen most in the winter. At any rate, we're covered, we're taken care of, all is good here. So I have a lot of videos on preparedness and what we do. And you might have even just seen one on lighting. I've added some new light sources. Those were really nice. Those LED candles that I could just click a button and on they go. And then from there, I can then light my lanterns, which I still do use. I like to use a mix of things when it comes to lighting. All right, so moving on from there, I want to talk a little bit about kimchi. So I did do a couple of things recently. One was finally making another Substack post. I haven't had it long enough for me to remember to try to be conscientious about putting out a post every so often there. My goal was hoping to do it once a week. That hasn't happened, but I did do one, and it was about kimchi. I shared a bunch of images and video clips on how to make different types of kimchi. Right here is one of my jars of red cabbage kimchi. I love the look of it. But the only thing I don't like about red cabbage kimchi is anything else you add to it turns that same color, so you don't get that nice blend of colors like you do with the standard cabbage or bok choy kimchi like I'm showing here, or the fun floral kimchi using all kinds of different flowers from the garden, or my cucumber kimchi. So you don't get all that many colors, but then again, the red pepper in there eventually does kind of color everything sort of a dark orange anyway. So the purple's kind of nice. And the fun thing about this was my youngest grandson was here when I first started getting into this, my other jar, because I had 2 jars. I'm going to get another jar going because I still have more red cabbage. Is that he was looking at it and he's really wanting to try it, and he's 3.5. And I'm like, I don't think you're going to like this. And it's spicy. I make it quite spicy. But he still wanted to try it, so I gave him a little piece of the cabbage, and he liked it. He really liked it. He kept coming back for more. You know, it got a little too hot after a while, so he had to take a break from it. Then he ate more later. So I think he was attracted to the color of the red cabbage. And I also used red onions in here, so, you know, it's doubly red because of that. But anyway, the other thing I did in regards to kimchi, besides making that Substack post, you'll always find my Substack link in the description box down below, just to the basic, and so you can go there if you want to see the post. But I also put together a playlist of my kimchi videos, the more recent ones, not my old ones, because they're kind of similar to the newer ones I've made, but the newer ones have better sound quality. So I've got 4 of those, and one is just the basic kimchi, how I make it without using the salt brine like I once used to do when I first started making kimchis about 30 years ago. I'm thinking maybe it's right at 28 years ago that I started doing it. I also have the floral kimchi. I have the cucumber kimchi. I have one showing me making kimchi from entirely all dehydrated goods. So yes, you can do that. I have dehydrated cabbage, and I mostly like using fresh, but if you get a hankering for kimchi and you don't have any fresh cabbage, but you've got a bunch dehydrated up, you can do that. Your cabbage, your garlic, your onions, your ginger, etc. And then another update I wanted to give was, you might have seen my herbal vinegar video come out this last week. And every now and then I like to do those kind of updates because people still are stuck in this mindset of apple cider vinegar. Like there's nothing outside of white vinegar or apple cider vinegar when you can make vinegar out of anything. In fact, I had somebody come into one of my vinegar making videos and say, well, there's a faster way to do that. And I don't think they watched the video. I think they were assuming I was taking vinegar and just adding fruit to it and letting it sit for a month. No, that's not what I was doing. I'm starting the vinegars from scratch. I'm not running out and buying vinegar. I'm making it from scratch with water, sugar, fruit or herbs, whatever I feel like using. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about how to make vinegar. I've got a whole bunch of videos on that. I'll link to my most recent thorough vinegar making video down below. But I did do the standalone just herbal vinegars to get people to think outside that box of it always being made of apples. So in that, I had started a batch of rosemary vinegar. And well, that video, see, other than my Monday videos, this is why I like having these Monday videos that are only a few days difference from the time they're shot to the time they publish. Pretty much the rest of the videos you see will have been recorded around 6 weeks prior. Some even older if they're Patrick's videos, because they can take a while for me to get to his. But this is actually the most recent batch I just started because I've already strained out the 2 jars of rosemary vinegar that I had started and was the one, including the one I was showing making in that video. So you can see the color. This is just one of the jars. So I filled up with the 2.5 gallons. It filled up about 1.5 gallons. And I did take some and put it in the bathroom to wash my hair with. And that's in fact what I washed my hair with today. I didn't use anything else. It's what I wash and condition with. If I feel like using a soap, like maybe once a week or once every other week, I might use a soap. If it's not my homemade bar soap, it's going to be the Dr. Jacobs soap. And I love that. I always have a link to them in the description box. My favorite scents currently are the Oriental Oud, the Sensual Manoi, and the Lavender Clary Sage. They're excellent. All 3 of those are the African black soap. And so they're very conditioning to the skin and hair. But anyway, today I just used the rosemary vinegar. But I also wanted to let you know that my plan was also to try making an Italian dressing out of it. So I whipped up just a quick batch of Italian dressing because I had some salad I was going to eat. And just threw in a little garlic, some oil, and a few other herbs and spices. And it was really good. So that rosemary that I made that out of from my garden, just rosemary, sugar, and water was all I used. And that rosemary flavor was very strong in the vinegar, so it really lent a great flavor to the Italian dressing. So again, coming back to that whole idea, is if you're wanting to have just a good flavored vinegar for making such things, rosemary, oregano, sage, garlic, these are all things that you can make your vinegars out of for making good salad dressings and even for marinades. So anyway, that was my update. And then because I like that so much, I went ahead and my rosemary is still putting on some new greenery even this time of the year, and cut some more and got some more started. And then another fun thing I did, and you'll be seeing a post about this on the YouTube channel here, both of my YouTube channels. You'll see this down the road, but I made some tortillas the other day, and I was talking, I think last week, about using like the pumpkin powders and the zucchini powders and other types of squash powders in breads, and how soft it makes the breads. And I thought I was going to make some enchiladas out of, because I had some leftover beef roast. And I was thinking, enchiladas sound really good. Okay, I got to make the tortillas. And I'm like, ooh, here's a perfect time for me. I've done the zucchini powder and many other types of breads, pancakes, yeast breads, and so on, but I haven't tried it in the tortillas. So I put about a quarter cup of the zucchini powder, just straight it out, straight across, a quarter cup of the flour for a quarter cup of the zucchini powder, and I love how soft it made the tortillas. It made them much more bendy and soft than just using plain old flour. Even though they got a little bit too brown, a couple of them, they still stayed bendable, and I love that. And so it was a great way to not only add a little more nutrition to the tortillas, but also just add a better texture. So I'm going to be doing that from now on, as long as I keep remembering it. So I've got a lot of zucchini put up from this last year. I plan on powdering more and using it in this way. Same thing with the pumpkin. I'm just absolutely in love with the pumpkin breads that I've been making. And it's not a super sweet bread. It's just putting that pumpkin in there. It adds a nice aroma, a nice flavor, and just an overall nice texture to the bread. I love it. Okay, so another thing that to me is kind of exciting, I don't know if any of you will really care, but I have had several people ask me for my Amazon storefront link. Now, for those of you who don't know how that works, I actually had one for a long time and then I couldn't keep up on it. And so I just kind of let it go and stopped putting the link in my description box. Well, it's back in there because I finally decided to go in there and update it. So the problem with the storefronts is that on Amazon is sometimes those particular items are no longer available, or I no longer buy that particular product or whatever it may be. And so I got to remember to go back and check those things, and I tend to forget. So now that I'm only doing 4 videos a week, I'm hoping I'll be better at remembering to go check maybe once a month to see what's in there, add products, and so on. So I did go to my original link. I removed everything I no longer use, updated a few links, and then added more things in there, more new things, such as the link to my board scraper that I'm absolutely loving, plus a few other things that I've added to the list that I use or things I would recommend, such as winemaking kit with the 4 jugs, the airlocks and stuff. I haven't bought that particular kit because I've collected things over time, but that would, if you're getting into winemaking, that's a good idea for a full kit, because you got the 4 jugs, you've got the caps, you've got the airlocks for a reasonable price to get started, and they're 1-gallon jugs. So anyway, just things like that. So for those who've been asking, I finally did do that. So the storefront on Amazon for content creators isn't stuff that we make and sell. I do have items that we make and sell. Patrick makes a certain type of generator to make a certain sort of liquid with a precious metal in it, and he also makes the vacuum chambers, and so that's just a couple of the things that he makes and sells. And then I have my skin cream and a few other things, and our seeds, our herbal seeds. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, the stuff we make directly and sell ourselves, you just got to email me at raincountryhomestead@gmail.com, and I'll send you out our product list. But the Amazon storefront is for products that we have purchased and used, such as my treadle sewing machine and my country living grain mill, which I'll tell you has almost doubled in price since we bought it years ago, just so you know that. My canner, my All-American canner, things like that. Some of that stuff was already in there, but some of the links did need to be updated, because that's the other thing, is sometimes the links just get changed. And even though some of that stuff you can find on Azure Standard, and I now buy on Azure Standard, such as the little silicone sealing caps that you can put inside your lids like this, and not everybody can order from Azure Standard either, so I like having a couple different options for people. And then last thing I wanted to bring up is today I'll be reading another preparedness testimonies and shooting that video, which we'll publish about 6 weeks from now. But it's the last one in my list, in my email folder. So if anybody has some preparedness testimonies they would like to share, please email those to me at raincountryhomestead@gmail.com with the title Preparedness Testimony, so I can drop it into the appropriate folder. I don't usually read them when they come in. I just drop them in there. I want my first time really reading through it when I'm shooting the video. So yes, that's my last one in there. My folder is empty, so I could use some more. So if you wondering what that means, well, the preparedness testimonies are about two different sides of it, and it can encompass both if you want. But basically, it's about you sharing how you got into a better position on a budget. Because a lot of people have this idea that preparedness costs so much money to get there. You know, having some food storage, having a few extra lights or a way to cook or keep yourself warm when the power's out, things like that. People think it has to cost a lot of money, but it doesn't. And so I've had some people share some really great testimonies of how they got there on very little money, just by nitpicking here and there, putting up a little bit here and there. And then the other side of that is people sharing stories about how being more prepared, how having a garden or a food storage or ways to take care of themselves in some kind of local disaster or larger natural disaster, how they managed to get through it. And they share with us their real life stories, and then I read them to you. So that's the kind of stories I'm looking for. And so, yeah, I need more if I want to keep that series going. And if you're interested in that series, I'll link to it in the description box down below so you can hear other people's stories that I've already read. The one I'm reading today or shooting today is going to be part 19. So that means there's already 18 videos out right now of people's stories, and there's some really great ones in there. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my this and that for the week. Any thoughts, ideas you'd like to share, please put those in comments down below. And don't forget to check out those links and whatnot I'll be putting in the description box by clicking on more or show more somewhere down here below the video screen. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.